It is now time to call the special call meeting of the Franklin City Commission to order, and Judge will call the county.
Yeah, I would like to call the special call meeting, joint meeting with the city and the county to order for the fiscal court. At this time, we'll have Mayor Dixon open us with prayer, and we'll follow that with the pledge to the flag.
Let's all pray. Our most gracious and loving Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful day. Lord, we thank you for your great love, your mercy, and grace. And Father, as we gather here today, may all that is said and all that is done will be according to your will. May you open our hearts and our minds that we will receive the words that will be spoken and things that will take place here today. For all these things we do ask in your precious name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Mayor, the first item on is discussion or possible action regarding Scott Waste Service and Amnesty Day. I don't see Pete here. Do you want to take it, Kenton?
They say your children. I did not take it. I didn't see her.
Thank you, Judge. As you see, please, I think last year we had the Scott Waste Amnesty Day, and the memo we did talk about the date is April 22nd and April 23rd. And they basically, in the contract that the county and the city has together, they would provide 10 roll-offs, and that's a Friday and Saturday, and typically what that is they're manned Friday and Saturday. And basically the things that's not allowed is motor oils, paints, refrigerants, tires, asbestos, chemicals, batteries, and contractor scrap, demolition, and building material. So basically we have either a city or a county employee check your license, making sure you're a resident of Simpson County, and you go through and do that. Last year, I was going to ask Pete, it was very successful, but the second day last year, it rained all day. It pretty much shut it down, but I think we pretty much loaded up. But I think the judge and I both kind of made a commitment of a few roll-offs. If we went over, that we would carry that, and I'm hoping that maybe we could do the same thing as far as opening it up to the public. But those are the dates that I penciled in. It's very close to the dates we had last year. It kind of gets kind of close to the spring cleaning, people wanting to get out and cleaning things up. I just wondered if there was any questions or concerns about maybe what we did last year, we can do something better, but I thought we'd get it out early and promote it and let everybody know.
What's the location of these?
It's at the convenience center.
Okay.
I can't Kenneth Utley Drive.
Can we talk about anything else with Scott Waste other than
Well, I
this?
thought that we would revert back to that if that's just what you wanted, but I thought if we could get this kind of nailed down.
That'll be a question for the attorneys.
I just wonder if any other elected officials get as many phone calls about the services of Scott Waste as what I get.
Yeah, I get a ton.
And I don't know how much longer their contract is, but the next contract, I think it should be in there. If they miss a week, they have to take that week off the bill, because there's roads in my district that they let go for weeks, or for a whole week when they could have come back and done it. So I know it's kind of off topic, Scott. That's the reason I asked before I did it.
I know. I let it slide for a minute, but I think
Okay.
Marty, we discussed that at a city commission meeting, and they said that just have them call them, they will credit their account.
Okay.
Well, yeah, also, that's why I asked Pete to be there, but
Let me say too, for like people that are maybe watching or listening or whatever, if we're discussing and you see one of the county attorneys say, hey, wait a minute, we can't talk about that, just understand that we're in what is considered a special called meeting, not because of the date, but because of the location. Because typically in the record that sets these meetings, this meeting would typically be held at City Hall, but for space purposes, it's here, which makes it a special called meeting. So if we go to discuss something that's not directly on that agenda, we will be completely out of line in that discussion, and we can't have it. So, and I'm just saying that, I see a lot of people in attendance, so if you get ready to speak, if we're talking, if you have a question, and it's about something that pertains to nothing that we're talking about, we can't discuss it in this meeting today.
So don't do what I just did.
I'm sorry, Kent, I just felt like we needed
No,
to kind of,
that's
I
fine.
should have done that at the very beginning, I'm sorry.
But I think the Amnesty Day is a good thing. If we need to do a couple extra dumpsters,
Yeah.
I'm fine. If the
Yeah.
court is, entitled or wants to do that, I'm glad to vote for that or whatever.
What typically Judge Barnes and myself did, I can't remember that he had county staff on Friday and city staff on Saturday. We just, use the county. So that way we just kind of split up the manning that way, and we will do the same thing, kind of work out the details. But
I went myself on the rainy day.
yeah, it was one of those all-day rains. But like I said, if we approve these dates, then we'll go ahead and get it started publicized. Any other question on Amnesty Day? All right, thank you.
I'm good with the date, and Magistrate Chandler brings up a good question. Do we need a motion and a second from each body to cover the overages of containers beyond what Scott Waste allots?
If you're paying for them and they're not budgeted, probably so, yeah.
So how
And
many?
also, we might mention here the items that cannot be accepted too.
Yeah, we'll
And
put that
and
up.
you're gonna have
We'll-
overtime,
we'll-
probably some overtime.
Yeah, we'll put all that on the website, city and county websites.
How many did we do last year? Over?
No, they provide 10, and we agreed to do, I think it was 4.
Yeah, I think it was 4. We split the 2.
Oh,
4 over total, so it'd be a total of 14 containers.
so 2 from the city and 2 from the county?
Yes, or if we only use 1, I mean, we'd just split the cost of the 1.
Okay,
We need to make
so do we need
Probably.
more than
in a
the 4?
regular city.
No, because we didn't get to that point last
Okay,
year.
okay, that's the reason I was.
Yeah, no, we didn't get to that point last
And,
year.
and your motion needs to include overages for employees as well. I just do a generic motion to approve expenses listed at the Amnesty Day. Additional expenses.
I'll make that motion for the city that we approve the Amnesty Day for those 2 days of April 22nd and April the 23rd, and pay for any overages of extra containers and/or employees
And other expenses.
and other expenses.
We have a motion by Commissioner Bennett. Do I hear a second? We have a second by Commissioner Powell. We'll have a roll call vote. Commissioner Stewart?
Yes.
Commissioner Bennett?
Yes.
Commissioner Powell? Yes. Commissioner Williams? Yes. My vote's a yes, and that motion carries.
Pam, did you get all that motion jotted down? All right, so we just need someone on the county side to make similar motion or like motion.
So moved.
Motion by Marty, second by Nate. Any other question or discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Next on the agenda is discussion or possible action regarding the interlocal agreement for emergency management radio communication equipment purchase. I think everyone probably had an opportunity to see this interlocal agreement.
Please note, it's very rough. I mean, there's a lot of
Yeah.
lights that I need to talk through with the
And I-
judge and the city manager.
And I read through it. Sam, have you had the opportunity to read it?
Very, very sketchily.
I mean, the gist of it, and we'll let Mr. Crabtree explain more if needed, but I mean, the gist of it is that the city and the counties purchased this equipment, and we're agreeing to split the cost 50-50, and the maintenance going forward 50-50, but the maintenance of the actual radio equipment itself, or the replacement of it, would be the responsibility of each entity after the initial purchase.
That's right. And we'll just have to bill back and forth on utilities, whoever takes the lead on that, insurance, whatever, and then we'll have to wash it out at the end of the year.
Any questions?
So on this payment schedule, they're asking for 1.475 up front, right?
Right, well, remember what we discussed this morning?
Right, and that says paid for by April 4th, then the next line down is the other half of it, is that correct? And so, you got 2,822 or 25% with the contract, are they asking for the 1.475 plus another 368,000 when they order, so it's more than the 1.475 down, is that right? Am I don't, that's the reason I'm asking, I don't know.
Yeah, so the part that was a payment agreement of 25%, 60%, 10 and 5, the first 25 had to be paid with the execution of the contract. So I believe the county has already paid their portion. We just got our budget amendment passed, and so we've paid that portion today for
Okay.
that first 25.
Okay.
And then the other came about, the other $1,475,000 was in lieu of doing a 5-year lease, which would incur about $80,000 of interest.
Right.
Motorola agreed with Judge Barnes to waive those interest fees if we would go ahead and pay it now, even though they had started accruing some interest.
Okay.
So we did that to save the money.
That's 82,000 that I was mentioning this morning.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
that never was mentioned in the
Right.
Well, if you finance something over the 5 years, we knew it was gonna be
Yeah, something-
finance charges on it,
but-
I just didn't, that amount never was
Yeah,
disclosed.
the amount of it never was disclosed, and we just felt it better with the money, the money we're using to do this and the money that's there to not accrue interest if we didn't have to.
Okay.
Does that make sense,
And,
Marty?
and for the public's benefit, you might want to tell them where this money came
Well,
from.
we're funding, the city and the county are jointly funding this out of the Arpa funding that comes from the federal government. But there's a few things you can't do with Arpa funding. You cannot reduce debt. You cannot use it to pay on your debt load. You cannot enter into agreements that accrues interest either. So the bill has to be paid in order to use the ARPA funding. And two, and we talked about this extensively at our last joint meeting, our emergency communication equipment is, I guess the best way to describe it would be archaic. And there are a number of areas, especially out in the rural parts of the county, where it just doesn't operate. And so that just an unsafe situation for our citizens and our first responders.
Well, for both bodies, I'll get with Judge Barnes and the city manager, we'll fill in the blanks, and we'll send it to the respective bodies to pass individually.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
that's good.
Yeah, we'll just, once everything is ironed out and the blanks you see in it are filled out, we'll get it back to pass. Mayor, you want to take the next item?
Yes, the next one will be discussion and or possible action regarding the Franklin Simpson Parks operation. And I think Lisa Devers is here today. She was just our newly elected person out there, so I think she's here to bring some information, and we'll be glad to. And also, you too, Mr. Fleming. So.
I just wanted to come, and I told everybody whenever we got a new hire that we'd come and introduce that person. I just want to introduce Lisa as our new parks director. Today to everybody, this is the best way. You got both organizations here, so at this point, then I'll just turn it over to her, and you all can ask her the questions.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, Chuck. And I would also like to thank Chuck and Lisa Bashant, our board members, for being here today for moral support. I've been in my position 2 weeks now, going on week 3. As they say, you know, if you were in the military, it would be hell week because it's ball sign-ups and you don't have an assistant. So 2 weeks we've been doing that, but we have almost 500 kids signed up for all of our ball leagues this summer. So we're excited to get them started next week. See if I can find my 20 pages of notes here. No, I'm sorry. And I'll have to
Lisa,
take
some
these
of
on
us have dinner plans.
Well, I hope you brought a snack. No, I'm just kidding. I can't tell you all how excited I am to be here. Yes, I have served in this position before, from 2000 to 2004. Left here, went to work for the state, and that was a whole different experience with state parks, but a lot of experience that I think that we can utilize here in Franklin. Of course, we're Franklin, we're a unique community, so we can look at other things. We may not be able to do what they do, but one thing, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just need to make a better wheel. So we can always take new ideas, new possibilities, and make them our own. And I look forward to working with the Parks Board, the city and the county, as we move forward with our parks, because this is going to be a partnership of our community. I like to think of parks as uniters, not dividers. So this is where we're all going to come together for our community. Most of you all know, parks are for quality of life in a community. And that's what we're here for. We're here to boost that quality of life. What can we do for our community members? And for the first time in history, and I would like to thank, I actually do read the city newsletter. I read it yesterday, so I will be using some of the information from that. But for the first time in the history of our community, our population majority is under the age of 41. So what does that mean for us as a community? That means we need to be looking at what this population, the majority population, has interest in. That could be different than my interest or your interest. So what do they value? Well, one thing we know, and yes, I attend a lot of planning and zoning meetings and hear about the growth, we know they don't want large yards. However, they do value green space. They want open spaces for activities like kickball, wiffle ball, just, a place to go out and take their family for a picnic. They want greenways. They want easy access to parks, but they want a safe way that they can ride a bike, or they can walk, or they can run to get there. And they also like adventure. Now, some of the adventure we can't do, like zip lines, things like that, but paddling has been growing in years across the country, and more so in our county over the past 7 or 8 years. When I first bought my kayak, I think I was the only kayak in town. There were a few canoes. But they want access to water. And I know I've been to fiscal court before, and we have talked about that, and I know with the city we have talked about that. We have the boat ramp out on 100. How can we make that more accessible? I know Bob is working with Fish and Wildlife to do the Life Jacket Loaner program. So these are great programs that we can have in our community, and partnerships is a big part to the success of us and to parks. One thing about parks, they like to share information. So they'll tell you what works, what doesn't work, if you see something that you like somewhere else. So that's what I'm looking forward to see how we can grow our parks as our community grows. And with that, I can think of no better time now than, just like the county is doing their comprehensive plan, the city is working on a comprehensive growth plan. It's time for our park to develop a comprehensive growth plan, to have a master plan. 1998, we had a feasibility study, but that feasibility study never advanced into a plan. That's all it was. So that's one thing that I would like to look at. We had submitted our budget. I think Terry submitted these back in December, some budget ideas, and I had talked to Chuck and the board at the last meeting if we can amend those requests just a little bit. The requests he had are great. Those are items we needed, but I think we have some more pressing items above that we would like to consider in our budget request. And thank you both for inviting us to come to the table to sit during those budget plannings. Mason had extended an invitation. Kenton had extended an invitation. And I look forward to relearning that process to see how that works and how we can benefit the community the most. And of course, right now, the city is doing a couple of parks. They have Hoy Park, and with the police department, they'll have a little play area, playground, walking trail. Reach Organization, which is a nonprofit here in town, is doing park improvements at Lincoln Park, and they have themselves paid for the master plan for that. So I would like to see us bring our community park up to the standards in which we're setting for those two parks. That would just kind of serve as our roadmap as we move forward. Of course, we know plans change, but that's also going to allow us to figure out the best use of our land, because we know, and yes, there's a lot of open space out there, but we also know that all of that open space cannot be developed because it was landfill. So we're limited as to what can be built and where it can be built. This master plan would allow us to determine, based on what our community needs are, the community has input into this, what we need to build and where to best utilize that to keep it safe, non-congested areas, and to get the best use out of it. Our parks also, with the right amenities, can serve as an economic driver. You know, we have the Little League tournament is coming up in June through July. We have June 24th to July 2nd. We're going to have people from this region of the state, including Paducah and Owensboro, bringing their players into our community to play. With the right amenities in the future, we can also serve as an economic driver for other groups coming in to our community. I've talked with Amy a little bit, look forward to working with tourism to see some things that we may be able to do and promote together. And then, of course, you know, the pandemic demonstrated a need for public space and green space. And our community park is beautiful. We have Lincoln Park, we have Bradley Park over on Breckenridge Street. But we do know as our community grows, there's going to be additional need for parks in other areas of our community. So hopefully this master plan would help us develop that as well. And some of the goals basic operating goals that I met with, and I mean, I will be transparent, I will tell you, and some of you may not even want to hear, but so if I say too much, tell me, no. But we want to work on developing policies and SOPs for our park operations and visitors. I mean, we have some in place, but as we grow and as the user groups change and as more people come into our community, you know, we've always been used to saying kind of a handshake deal, which handshake deals are good, but we want everything in writing. We want to work towards a better preventative maintenance plans and maintenance objectives in our park. We want to increase our park beautification. We want to increase our community events, and we want to develop a parks webpage. We want to make everything more user-friendly. I want it, like I said, with ball sign-ups and building rentals. One thing I've noticed a lot of people call was some of that they could get if we had a webpage and they could download it online instead of coming out to the park, even though we want them at the park, but for some, it's an inconvenience to try to get there. For our board, I have emailed them all an application, and Nate kind of referred to this morning in one of his board meetings, asking them some information about them. Why do they want to serve on the board? What do they bring to the table? So I can get to know our board members better. And then hopefully in the future, we can plan a board training with that, because the Parks Board is a policy-making board. They're the ones who create the policy for the parks. So I want them to feel comfortable in their role as that Parks Board member. We are establishing monthly meetings, and I'm not one for the meeting for the sake of meeting, but I feel like we have a lot of things now that we want to get in line for the better improvement of our park system. And any questions so far? Are you awake? No, I said, any questions so far?
Everything sounds good.
Okay, so and some other things that we're doing, I mean, we have programming at the park, but a park can be so much more. We have our athletics. Our athletics are strong. We have baseball, we have softball, we have soccer, we have flag football. But we can expand those. But we also need to include programming for adults, for our different populations, fitness, special events. Is Eric back there laughing at me? Youth programs, outdoor recreation, different activities like that. We want to encompass our community. We are a community park, and we want to provide things for our entire community. We also want to look at, like I said, doing some special events and things like that at the park. And Pam, I haven't notified you, but we're moving Earth Day to the park. And it ties in good with the Amnesty Day, because that's on April 23rd. So that will be just a small little festival at the park to try to get people at the park and get them connected with the resource. I mean, when we're doing Earth Day, we're talking about protecting our water source, protecting our lands. So what better place to do it than at the community park? Another thing we're working on And I spoke with Kiwanis, and their Easter egg hunt will still be on the square. We're trying to find a complimentary program for that. So not anything that's labor intensive on our end, but just a little scavenger hunt, either through the park or through the community, that people can do that week of spring break, and then it'll culminate with their Easter egg hunt. Also looking at possibly doing something for adults or teenagers in that realm too, for an egg hunt. May 21st is Kids to Parks Day, and we would like to do something to attract different families to the park to see what we have. In June, we have Great American Backyard Camp Out, which that's an opportunity for families to come to an area they normally can't camp, but they learn about camping. You have a campfire, you introduce them to the outdoors. And then July is Parks and Recreation Month, and we really want to focus on highlighting the value of parks in our community during that time. You know, my goal as director is to do the best that I can for our community and for our parks, and I can't do that alone. So that's why I look forward to working with all of you all, hearing your ideas, seeing what you have, and seeing how we can work together to make our parks a great community park. Any questions?
I don't have a question, I just have a statement. Congratulations.
Thank
Well
you.
deserved. We look forward to working with you and know you're going to do a great job. I've known you a long time and know what you did before. I know what you can do now. And we're here to support you in your effort. So.
Well, thank you. I mean, I know there are going to be challenges, and, you know, anytime you work with the public, you can't please everyone, but we're going to do our best to do what we can for what our community wants. And actually, I have a couple of answers from the questions this morning from the Splash Pad Park.
Just to let the city commission know,
Yeah.
we had a gentleman bring an idea of a splash pad up and just show us some figures and stuff. So just so anybody didn't know, they don't know.
Yeah, one of the questions was during that, because it does have to operate like a pool, in that you do have to do chemical checks on a regular basis throughout the day, so 3 times a day. And typically you want somebody that's a certified pool operator or aquatics facility operator to do that. The cost of the AFO is $300, and that's a 5-year license or permit to do that. When he had talked about the size of the splash pad and what it is, typically you want to figure what your usage would be on a daily basis, and you want about 25 square foot per person. Now, on his proposal, of course, I know he had said it was roughly 2,000 square feet, but when you look into the written proposal that wasn't for us, the example he gave us from another county, he had the non-slip coating area, which is where the water would be. You're only looking at about 42 people based on the size that he had. So the entire area would include 80 people. This would be 42 people in that non-slip area. And again, as he said, you can do the flow through or the recirculating. It takes about 3 years to recoup that cost between recirculating, the cost of doing recirculating versus flow through. Because with that flow through, depending on what your water bill and sewage bill is, that's your expense with that. But the recirculating, if your bill is $50,000 a year for water on a flow through, you're probably going to recoup that in about 3 years if you go with the recirculating method. But again, you know, would like to see, you know, some different proposals just to see what they have. I mean, this is a good start. And I mean, I think he did a great job with it. From the components, there are a lot more exciting components you can do. And I mean, and you can build something, but if it doesn't excite somebody to come use it, they're not going to come use it. So I would just like to see some different proposals if we could.
I would too, and what I would suggest, and it's just my suggestion, but you obviously have researched this type of project, you know about it. We didn't even know, we just contacted some people and said, give us an idea of what something might work. So I would be perfectly fine, and I would work with you if you'd like for me to, but I would be perfectly fine for you and the board to come up with an idea. And, you know, I don't know if it needs to be bigger than that or smaller than that or whatever you know from your experience. So I would be perfectly fine with you all coming up with an idea and bringing it to fiscal court and letting us look at it.
Which brings up another question.
Yes.
At some point, will you be bringing us a list of items like I would like to see the park do this, 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 and this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and actually, and that's what, I want to learn from you all, what you want in these meetings and in this information. I mean, yes, I know budgets, and, that's a given, but I will be glad to come sit at either table or together with you all. And actually, I would like to invite you all, if you haven't already set your agendas for one of the joint meetings, to have it at the park, so you can come out and do a walkthrough of the park, or you can come do it anytime. But I'd like, as a collective group, for you all to see, and then see what goals we may be wanting to achieve with that. So that's one thing. But yes, Mason, you all just, and if I leave something out, let me know.
And,
Because,
well, I'll say, and I agree with Marty on the splash pad deal. If that's something that you feel like we need to incorporate in the park,
right.
let you and the Parks Board kind of weave through that and bring those ideas back to the city and the county.
And we can do that. And like I said, and with this, the one thing that I picked up on is that they subcontracted a lot of things. And I know they do playgrounds, because I've done business with them in the past with playgrounds. And for several years, playground companies got into doing water parks, and then some of them realized that they had no experience in the aquatics part of it. So they refer to other people who take care of the entire project, and then if you have a problem, you go back to that person. But no, we would definitely be willing to look at that, because like we said, and as he said, depending on where it's built, you have to have restrooms. I mean, that's mandatory. And right now, the only locations that we have that we could build on, there aren't restrooms, or you would have to build it in an area that's already so congested, you wouldn't want to add that additional congestion at that time frame.
Lisa,
Yes.
it was brought to my attention yesterday, Larry, I think you mentioned it, and maybe Kenton, that there are some new federal guidelines on the pumps and
Yes.
everything for us, so you're aware of that.
I haven't read into them, but
Okay.
yes.
Okay, in addition,
Yes.
okay, so whatever you look into, we'll have to look at those new guidelines and
Right.
make sure that we're looking at the right ones. In addition to that, I think we discussed this, we've contracted with EHI
Yes.
for our comprehensive plan, and part of that comprehensive plan will be information on parks and recreation. And we hopefully will have a forum that we will have for the community to come to discuss issues and their wants and needs. And I think Kenton would probably agree, and Larry, that we would like you to work with us on information that he's going to be putting out there for a survey that he
Right.
will send out prior to that. So Kenton, is that something that Lisa can? Absolutely. Yeah, okay. Because, you're gonna need to tell us what kind of questions that need to be asked of in that survey to get the information that you need.
Okay, great. And I know the next topic is on planning and zoning, but, and this was something that we discussed at one of the meetings, not in the meeting, but even as we work on a greenway trail design for the city and the county, that may be something that we look forward to if we ever get that lined out and a developer comes in and they're going to build in an area where that could go, that could be included in their plan, like that segment could be in their plan. But, yeah, I've got to get familiar with all the new regulations. It's been a while since I've done Parks and Rec on that aspect of it. Playground certifications are another thing that we have to do just on a regular basis, just to make sure that's safety. We're all about preventative maintenance, risk assessment. So that's some things, if we do that walkthrough, I would like to bring, for you all to be able to see those things as well. But again, thank you for your time, and anytime you want me to present anything or need any information, just let me know. But look forward to working with all of you.
Lisa, we're behind you. We know you do a good job.
All right, thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, next on our agenda will be the discussion and a possible action regarding amending the FS planning and zoning regulations. And I think Judge Barnes maybe has
Yeah,
comments.
Mayor, I emailed this to Kenton yesterday. I figured maybe y'all had it printed, but let me go over the 5 points if y'all want to jot these down, and then we'll go back and discuss point by point a little bit. I think if any of you or all of us, I'm sure have, but if you've been paying attention, I think planning and zoning and growth and so forth has drawn a lot of attention in the community over the last little bit. And before we get into this, I want to say to everyone that's in here and everyone that's listening, I am absolutely pro-growth, but we need the right kind of growth at the right pace. And so I think there's some things that we may need to look at. I'm not saying that we'll change any of that today or even tomorrow, but I think it's a good discussion that we need to have, and we'll look at it from there. But the 5 points are the P&Z administrator, zone change policy, the 2-year moratorium on eligibility for a zone change once a zone has been denied. We'll get on that a little more later. Mixed use and impact fees. So those will be the 5 points we're going to discuss. And I think, Mayor, let's discuss each point one at a time. And if we have anybody that has questions, we'll take them 1 point at a time. The only thing I ask you is if you have questions, come up to the microphone so that not only we can hear you, but this is going on live on Facebook and on the Channel 9 page. And so if you're asking a question sitting back there, the people who are watching or listening will be like, well, what did they even ask? Because we can't hear you unless you speak into that microphone. The first one is real simple with the P&Z administrator. I would like to see both bodies of government acknowledge today that we will stand behind the P&Z administrator to enforce P&Z regs prior to any meetings being held. If it's a regulation on the book and the administrator calls that regulation to attention, that we're going to stand behind him in his enforcement of that regulation. And I'm talking about our current regulations. Like, not that this happens often, but we have situations where you may have a development plan or something going on and the administrator says, well, that don't fit. Well, let's go to the commission anyway. Well, if the P&Z administrator is telling someone point blank, hey, this does not work in our current planning and zoning regs, I think we need to stand behind that individual, be it Carter or whoever. And I think Carter's sitting out here. I think it would make you feel better to know that both bodies of government are going to stand behind you if you make a decision based on planning and zoning regulations.
Judge, I haven't had that doubt. May I go back?
Okay, you can go back. So, good deal. That's good to know. All right. So, all but one of these others is policies that's currently in place. So I want to try to make everyone aware and understand what's currently in place and some ideas that I have, and then I would like to have some discussion to see what's on everyone else's mind or what your thoughts are. Currently, we have a zone change policy. And Carter, here, you may need to sit a little closer in case we need some correction or clarification.
Just give him a mic.
The zone change policy would be, if you buy a piece of property, let's say it's zoned agriculture, and you want to get that piece of property changed to residential, and I'm not going to pick a residential zone. We have, 5, 6 to choose from, 7. You want to change to residential. The current policy is you come in and you fill out a zone change application. A public hearing is set. You'll go to a planning and zoning commission where the hearing will be held, and the commission will determine whether or not the zone change will be granted. And so I will use one recent episode as an example here of what I'm talking about. Right now, let's just say what it is. There was a lot of discussion about the Dollar General store and its location out by the creek. And how did they get to build that and so on and so forth. Well, here's exactly what happened. An individual bought that piece of property. It was zoned agriculture. The zone change request was made to business zone because the intent and purpose and development plan of that individual was to rehab the house and have office spaces on that property, fit in the business zone. That didn't happen. The property sold. Dollar General bought it. It was already zoned business. They did not have to have a zone change hearing to be able to build their business there. So that's how that happens. I would like for us to have a discussion about that the zone changes be particular to a development plan. That if say, for instance, in that scenario that happened, this individual does not complete his project and he sells the property, and the new owner has a completely different development plan, at the sale of that property, it revert back to the previous zone, and the new development would have to be required to get a zone change request based on their development plan, not because of what the Planning and Zoning Commission passed previously.
Nathan, I have a question. Would that not go to the conditional use permit
No,
situation?
no,
No? Okay.
no.
Here's another example. Say a individual or a business buys a spot of land and they get it zoned I-1, I-2 for the factory to put on. Or, you know, they got a big spot of land, they get it rezoned because they're going to do this, some type of industry. And then later on, within a couple, it doesn't, you know, nothing progresses on it very fast, and a garbage company buys it and it's zoned right for them to turn it into a landfill. And that's two completely different things, but they fit both in that one zone.
Then they would have to get a conditional use.
That's what I meant.
But that zone should say if it's rezoned residential, I think if it's rezoned, you know, I know we got a lot of developers in here. If you buy a piece of land, you rezone it, and it's zoned residential or whatever, and you build your houses on them, that's fine. But you know, there's a lot of spot zoning in the county and stuff, and this making the zone revert back to the original, if the original plan is not fulfilled, I think would help some of that.
I think we may be a little premature because that's going to take a little research to see if you can even do it. Once somebody has something rezoned, they have a property right in that new zone.
And you're taking it away from
Taking
them.
it away from that due process of law, so
You're taking it away from who?
the person who bought, hello, echo. The person who bought the property and got it rezoned, they have a property interest in having that zone change for their benefit. If you automatically switch it back without a hearing and without due process of law, I think you may have some constitutional issues. However, before you start picking me apart, and I know that's where you're headed because I can see a look on your face, I've known you all my life, I need to look at the law.
Yeah. And I do get what you're saying, but also you have to understand.
And let me say this, the conditions that you have to meet to get the property rezoned, if the board finds that the property did meet those characteristics, how do you say all of a sudden, no, it doesn't meet that anymore? So,
Yeah, but-
all that aside, again, we can beat this to death, but
Well,
the answer will be in the law
It
somewhere.
comes to
needs
the
be
next
looked at.
point too, and Carter on asked this question. If in giving a zone change, and I see at least one Planning and Zoning Commission member here too. In giving a zone change, does the development plan come into play in the granting of that zone change? Okay. And the point being to that, let's take the residential zone. And the planning and zoning grants a zone change for a concept of 100 homes in an area with certain size lots. That then sells still an R zone, but they want to do the concept completely different to where it's now 400 homes in the same area.
Well, we're addressing that. Carter and I have talked about that, about how plats can go stale and how we can revoke those. I agree with that. That's a different situation.
Yeah.
It's already zoned. If somebody decides to change what they've gotten approved, that's a whole new ballgame.
And again, I'm not pretending to have all the answers as to what we need to do or what needs to happen. I think all of us want to see our community grow, prosper, and be better, but you've got to have some mechanisms in place to make sure that we're doing the right thing the right way.
Prime example, there was a plat that was filed, 15, 20 years ago, and then they decided to pick it up and run with it, and we said, no, you gotta go back to the drawing board.
So the zone change things brings us to the next point about the moratorium, and this recently happened. Because I was at the meeting when it happened. The Planning and Zoning Commission was presented with a zone change for a certain development, and the commission said no. They voted no. The vote was no for the zone change. If I'm understanding correctly, and Carter, I'll make sure this is what you told me about this. Under our current planning and zoning regulations, once that piece of property has been denied for zone change, it's a 2-year moratorium before that piece of property can be considered for another zone change, correct? Okay. My point to that is, I feel like that moratorium, I think we need to take a look at that, because just because the commission denied a zone change request for that piece of property for one development doesn't mean that 6 months later they wouldn't approve a zone change for that same piece of property for a different development.
We're addressing that now, Mason.
Good.
Carter and I looked at
Y'all,
that.
y'all are on top of
And
it.
what we have, the regulations say it has to be a similar zone change request. In other words, R1 to R1. If you change from R1 to B2 or whatever, you're not under a moratorium. But also, I found some things that were in there that were kind of, I thought were ambiguous or loopholes. If, for whatever reason, planning and zoning denies one, that guy, the one that you're talking about, he withdrew his application so that he could reapply, and we realized that was a loophole, within the 2 years, so we fixed that. Now it's fixed. He can't, he may be able to slide, but he can't do that. We won't let that happen again. But if for some reason planning and zoning denies one that the city or the county are really in favor of, the city and county can ask to have a new hearing at their board meetings on their own, and rehear it if they choose to. And that's kind of an appellate right.
So will some of that language change in the regulations then?
We just now fixed it. They just had a public hearing. I think we're going to send it back up. Oh, okay, that's right. We haven't had it yet.
Because it'll take an ordinance amendment from both bodies of government to change it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That'll all be coming to you. Carter, if you've got that, you might want to send that to the judge. Or if I can remember, I will. That way you can see. Yeah, we're working on that and addressing that. Now, Bowling Green's only got a 1-year moratorium, just so you know. But the planning and zoning attorney wanted to keep it 2. So I think that's it.
The other is one we talked about a while back, and I guess the question is, are we addressing this one yet, is the mixed use, but more specifically mixed use meaning how much residential development will be allowed in a business zone. Because as we talked about in the last meeting, currently you could get a property rezoned to business and you could fill the entire property with apartment buildings, which are residences, in the business zone. And so are we thinking about or talking about having any reasonable or sensible mixed-use ratio of residential building inside a business zone?
They're all pointing.
We've been talking about that too, so I'm going to let them in the business. Yes, that's already come to our attention.
Yeah, we don't know which one's going to take, but just talking to Carter, that is a very
Good question, and we have forwarded that information to EHI, the consultant, Carter's. So we're going to see what examples they give us, and it's just what they have seen throughout the state. And once those come back, we'll probably review those and say what works best. EHI, who are they? They have an office in Lexington, they have an office in Louisville, they have an office in Cincinnati. They work up throughout the state, and they work with, in Paducah. They work with small cities, large cities, and they have a very good track record. They met with us probably 6 weeks ago, and we were very impressed with the information they provided. Some of the information was on our newsletter, demographics and different things as generations, and that kind of just rolled out in the meeting. But anyway, we passed that information on to them and saying, this is our situation, and they were going to come back with a recommendation, probably several recommendations, and then it's upon us to choose what best fits our city. Did I answer that correctly, Carter? Okay.
Can I just say something here too? And what we're going to do with his information is we're going to have a public forum and discuss some of the things he comes back to us with. And one of the things that we'll discuss, which is what Lisa made the point of, is the demographics that we're finding. Now, I'm older. I'm not going to tell my age here, but a lot of you know. I can't say, and I can't tell the 40 and under group what they want as far as housing, the size, the type, where to be located. Maybe they want to be next to a business, a restaurant, I don't know. We can't tell them, but what we've got to do is we've got to ask them what size homes they want, where do they want them located, how big they want them to be, and then we have to do what our citizens, the majority of our citizens want. And if they want the mixed-use developments, then I think that's what we, as a city commission and a fiscal court, have to provide for them. We cannot dictate our thoughts and our wants onto everybody else. So I think that's where the public forum is going to come in, and it's going to be beneficial to us all to find out what they want.
Let me kind of summarize what they're doing and what Kenton said. They're looking at it. I know we've all heard this. We've got too many apartments. You build them every day. They're going to look at this and see what our saturation rate is. When do we have too many? Are we there? Are we not there? And they're going to come back looking at all the communities that they deal with and try to figure out if we're, where we're headed and where we need to head. Go ahead.
Good question. We asked that question, because we talk about do we have too many apartments for the city, apartments versus residential. And we asked that question just off the cuff because it was a question and answer, and we really kind of abused them a little bit. They said, well, typically for most cities, 60-40, 60% residential, 40% apartments. And they said, if you want to be conservative, 70-30. Those are the numbers that just spit out. So I got with Daniel Ritzky and said, what are we? So he kind of crunched and basically, where we are right now is 77% residential, 23% apartments. But, okay, that's where we are right now. Then I asked Carter, I said, Carter, what's in the pipeline? Right, we know I think Carter says, per planning and zoning, 580 apartments and 449 homes. So you just load that into the hopper and see what's that. So when you load that in there, so it's 70% residential and 30% apartments. So what this does is this really cool thing. Whatever the government bodies say, okay, 70-30 or 60-40, it's a number. So when we get apartment requests, we say, okay, where are we? Oh, that puts us over, come back next year. This makes it really easy than kind of stressing out what that ratio is. So anyway, this is kind of really neat data that come out of our first meeting that gives us something to run by, a little cheat sheet. So those are kind of information that we'll probably be putting in our regulations. What's that ratio? And if we want to be conservative, it may be 70-30. So that's the kind of the stuff that we're really looking forward to putting out there once the data kind of comes in and where we are.
So when do you think you'll have that information?
Well, I said,
When I'm sitting here listening to this, we may be a little bit premature on some of these things until we get some of this information back.
There's a basic, I was pushing for June 30, because it was kind of the end of our budget year and kind of the thing. So they felt like that was doable for the basic things that we're talking about was June 30. So once we get that data to them, that's where kind of Commissioner was talking about is that we want to have a public meeting. What's this data telling us? it's just data.
We may be where they suggest,
It could be.
because of our land mass and our streets and
Absolutely,
whatnot.
because we don't know where that is. But once we get the information in, it's easier for us to make a decision. But they're just giving us the data. They're not saying this is what you need to do. They're saying this is where you are, and then it's up to us to kind of feel like where we want to be.
And it will make it easier for the planning and zoning people to turn somebody down if need be, because they will have
Yeah,
that,
it gives
that
Carter
set
the
number.
You know, the hard
So
part.
what you're saying is to say no,
Is that-
and the city and county back it, so there you go.
We have to listen to all age groups of people, Brian, you were the correct one. We have to make decisions for all,
That's
not just one sector. And you know, when you have, I don't know about the other guys, I get quite a few calls. Of course, I didn't know about the percentage of apartment versus housing. I know now. So it sounds like we're pretty much in line with what these statistics may show. Our communities are our size. But you have to listen to your constituents out here. You have to.
That's right.
Whether they're 25 years old or 75 years old, you have to listen to them.
And it kind of goes back to what we said. We have a younger population. They emphasize is great. We have young people that are staying in our city, but they're the next generation. And the younger is that they want apartments, they want high amenities, they want they're not, and you're hoping that eventually they're going to go to homes. But right now, they're at their age of, they want high quality apartments with the amenities. And that's kind of where kind of, if you read kind of what each group is interested in, it kind of is understandable. So that's where we have to step back and say, I'm a baby boomer. I like space. I like the mow. I do. But I can't push that on my kids because they don't want to do it.
Kenton, two questions on that percent number that y'all pulled so far. I assume that is apartment buildings, not apartment units.
It's apartment buildings and units.
Yeah,
It's units.
Okay, units, total apartment units.
That's correct.
And where did duplexes fall in? Did they fall in
It's included.
with apartment units?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. The only thing that wasn't included was mobile homes. I filtered that out because those are homes. So, but we have that data that's just pretty cool. But anyway, it's data.
Well, while you're there, on the last point, when y'all are talking with these people, did they mention any need or possibility, and then this is just a question for the commissioners and the magistrates, of impact fees going forward, because, and we have to understand that the more we grow, the more impact we're putting on infrastructure. I'm not talking about what's in the development, but downstream from the development, the roads that are outside the development, and even the load on your emergency responders. So
That's something that we really didn't cover, other than that could be a question we asked them.
and I'm not saying we need to, I'm just bringing up the question, do we need to look at that?
Yeah. That's something that we could ask.
Well, we did mention that to him, that we needed for him to look into, what our growth means for our infrastructure and our emergency personnel for the future, and even the school system. And a lot of people are talking about the schools, but what we have found is the school has not grown in the last 10 years. They have actually either gone down in their population and stayed the same. So it's kind of weird when you think about it that it hasn't grown. But it's because of several reasons. There's a lot of people that are homeschooling their children now. There's a lot of them that are going to Christian schools, and a lot of them have moved out, gone to other county schools. So there's a lot of reasons that population growth has not affected.
But you would think if our population number of the 41 and under seem to be growing, you would think the number of school-age kids
They're
may
not
eventually
having
grow.
as many kids as they used to.
true.
I mean, that's,
2.5 is what they said.
I mean, a lot of them are not having any at all, and some are just having one or two instead of 3, 4, and 5. So it just makes
Just
sense.
food for thought. I was talking to our superintendent a few weeks back. I just asked him, where are we at as far as capacity? How many more students can we handle? Not in all of our schools. He said between 400 and 500.
That's exactly what he told me.
Okay,
I had the
so-
same conversation.
When I was on the Board of Ed, we had 3,300 students. Today, we got barely 3,000.
That's right.
But our growth will impact our school district.
It will.
It'll impact our fire department. Obviously, I guess, I'm sure it'll impact the city water and sewer system, I guess. So it's going to impact quite a few areas.
Well, that's one of the
I
things, I'm sorry, Larry.
No, I would just like to say, I think this EHI group that we have hired, I think they're going to cover a whole lot of questions that are being asked here today. As comprehensive as they are, I think they're going to answer a lot of it.
Mayor, are they sending back like an actual report to you?
There's a couple things that we'll report, and then also there will be creating a survey with QR code, and it'll be going out through the whole county. It'd be asking certain questions. So and then once that they get that data, they'll share it. But that's where we were talking about more of a public forum, that they share that information and what they found.
Could y'all keep us in the loop on all that as you gather more of that information?
We're all involved, and then we talked about it because it's city county that they're reaching out, because a lot of the people that are living in the county come in and do parks and greenways, that they have all these interests. So everybody's got to be included. But this is what they do. With this generational group we're talking about, they want to do social media, and everything is going to be either by an iPhone or it's going to be an app. So it'll be something that everybody can, of course, respond to.
And one of the things, when he brings that information back to us and we set the timing for, with the survey and set the timing for the forum, we will invite people from all the departments that we were discussing to come and talk about their problems and how they think that they will be, best be either changed for the better or the worse, with our growth, and then try to put all that together in our comprehensive plan. I mean, we will invite someone from the school system to speak. We'll invite someone from the fire department to speak, from all the other departments, the water department, the sewer
Sheriff's
department.
Department, jail.
Absolutely. We want everybody to be involved in this. We invite them to come and speak, and we hopefully they will take us on that, and then the public will be allowed to hear everything, so that we can take all this information, put it together, and come up with our comprehensive plan that we have not changed.
So they will address, in talking to the jailer, we're probably maxed out now. Okay? So with more population, it's going to bring on a lot of other things as well.
Well, unfortunately, the city can't control the population of the jail, but
we have to look at that.
And one thing that I just want to bring this as an example, because they're used to having those hard questions, and they just come from Woodward County. If you know, Woodward County is horse country, and in their county and city, they wanted to make sure that the county stays horse country. So before, that you could only build on a 5-acre tract in Woodford County, but they wanted to preserve the horse farms. They changed from 5 acres to 30 acres. Wow. Took them 3 years, but you see, the county said, we want to keep the horse farms. So it takes that type of community to get behind it, and they did it. So this is what they're going to find out, what's the most value of our city and the county, and then they take that, and we have to work toward it. So they're used to, navigating through those hard questions, but if you go through Woodford County and stuff like that, that's what they're known for, and they want to keep it. So those are kind of things that they're dealing with.
And the impact fee, that's a good question. It's probably something we should pose to them.
Yeah.
It's a good thought. We're all concerned about it, sure.
Well, I'll say, one of the things that Myron said, and you can sit down, Candy. One of the things that Myron said is very true, and I'm going to reiterate it in just a minute, but I'll say this, and probably everyone sitting up here will say, yep, I've been there, done that, and I agree to this. Being an elected official and listening to several different groups of people, all with different thoughts, ideas, and opinions, it's almost impossible to make everyone happy. because as soon as you've made one group happy, then you do something else, the other group becomes happy, and the group that was just happy with you, now they're not so happy with you. So you've got to try to do your best to do the things that make the most sense for the community as a whole going forward for years to come. If we're only looking at what we do this year and maybe what's going to happen next year or even just a couple years down the road, we're short-sighting ourselves to what's going to happen 10, 15, 20, 30 years down the road. So, and I've got, at least I guess they're friends, I've got a lot of friends sitting over here that are in the house building business that I see. Hopefully they're friends. So when we talk about development plans and development issues, we're not just talking about residential. We're talking about business, industrial, every kind. And so we all want to try to do what's going to make Franklin and Simpson County the best it can be, 30, 40 years from now, when not only am I no longer judge, I'm no longer even here, most likely. So that's kind of where we're at with all of this. But I will say with all that, do any of you guys, and we got some realtors back here with us that also consider friends, do y'all have some questions, advice, input that would be good to hear on this topic?
Nathan, while they're thinking about that, I just,
You'll be what? You'll be longer than Lisa. I know, we got dinner plans, Gary. Well, we can't hear you if you don't speak into the microphone, and we can't.
Remind them. And remember too, they just said there was going to be a public forum too, where all these things can be addressed afterwards.
I don't know if this is a public forum or not, but anyway, I'll introduce myself. I'm Gary Slager. I've lived here my whole life. I graduated high school here. I have 4 children graduated high school here. I'm a builder. I'm also on the planning and zoning board. And not elected, but I still get the complaints and probably twice as many as y'all do. Are we going to discuss the impact fees at all? What your plan is, or?
Well, the first thing we have to determine, Gary, is if it's something that's even necessary. And then if so, then we're going to have, here, I want everyone to understand, what I'm talking about is not something that I would ever intend to be done in a back room or a dark, behind a closed door. That we would have something where we have open, public, community input, so that we're doing something that's as fair as it can be to everyone involved.
I'm not a
So the answer is no, today we're not doing anything today.
Not a very good speaker and get nervous. when I
Don't get
speak.
nervous, you're among friends.
Our 60-40 plan on housing apartments, I think a conservative figure is what's been said about how many homes and apartments are planned. I know of several projects coming that planning and zoning ain't even heard about yet, so just from friends. We don't build schools, we don't build fire departments, ambulance service by what we have today.
Right.
We build it when it comes. I feel like the city nor the county right now is doing anything to expand Simpson County. That's just my opinion. The contractors of Simpson County and out-of-town contractors put in 99% of the new infrastructure in Franklin. And it's going to continue to be that way because I asked the question, cities don't build new roads. The state may, if you get approved. So I don't know what the moratoriums, are we going to stalemate our county and not grow anymore? I don't understand.
No, the only discussion about the moratorium was for you currently, if you don't get.
But I'm saying approving subdivisions, apartments, whatever it is, and we're getting to a point where somebody's going to say, that doesn't fit, we can't do it. Are we stopping, or are we going to continue to grow?
Well, I think we're going to have to continue to grow. We're going to continue to grow.
So what I feel like we need is somebody here in this board, somebody needs to take charge. I feel like there's nobody leading this group at all. We have these meetings, it's discussed, and then next year we'll have another one just like it. And that's all I'm going to say.
Terry, you know, you lived there all your life, and I have too, been a businessman for 41 years, electrical contractor. I've never seen times like this, and I don't think that you have.
I haven't either.
It is hard to deal with, and when you take in Simpson County's land mass, you gotta think about all this stuff.
We've got sewer systems on the west side of Simpson County that haven't ever been touched, the largest in Simpson County,
Gary,
all over Simpson County.
I was in business 41 years here on the square, and I heard people come into my store many, many times and say, Franklin is one of the nicest areas there is in this whole area.
I agree with
And
you.
they would say, Franklin's going to grow one day, and it's going to explode.
And it's happening.
And I heard that many, many times.
We
And
can't
we're-
stop, you know, because we've always been between Bowling
No,
Green
we
and
can't
Nashville,
make
we'll never
plans
stop.
to stop either. We need to make plans that, we need a map, just for instance, Warren County, you pull up their county map. It has a blue zone over here. That's where they anticipate all their residential they want. They have a red map over here. They want just highway business here. It's planned. It's not bring it before the board and we'll approve you a business over there. If it don't fit in that area, it don't go in that area. They will turn you down in a heartbeat.
It's kinda easier with Warren
I
County.
think-
about
Simpson
3
County
times
needs
the
to
size
do the same thing.
I
We
think
can't-
that's what we're trying to do with this EHI
I don't like
consultants.
people saying we, as the planning and zoning board, have asked do everything, just to be putting it bluntly. I'm concerned about Simpson County. I want the growth to do what it has to do. But businesses, residential, they follow our sewer system. They follow the infrastructure. They can't put in 10 miles of infrastructure and build 20 houses on it. It's not, you can't do it. We're already at a price point that's hard for Simpson County because our citizens are in the 40 range income. That don't get you much of a house. If we put restrictions on sizes, and I know a lot of people didn't like the project out north of town, but poor people, and I'm not calling them people poor, but the houses are not 2,000, 2,300 square foot bricks. We got to have more of those houses, and we're trying to do away with them. Our citizens need them.
Who's trying to do away with it?
I'm just
not
saying,
necessarily trying to do
I'm
it.
just saying, they're not gonna get approved. I ain't gonna tell what I know. I'm just telling you, that's my feelings. That's
Because
my
we're gonna-
personal
You're
opinion.
right about one, we're gonna have to have houses across the whole spectrum of size and price range and all of that.
We have no affordable housing in Simpson County, in my opinion.
How do you build a affordable house today? How do you do
Well,
that?
you gotta build 1,100 square foot houses.
How is
That's
that affordable
that's-
at the cost
that's
of
affordable.
materials and whatnot? I mean,
I'm not saying affordable, it's gonna be a $150,000 house rather than a $350,000. That's the affordability. I'm not talking about it's affordable. I mean, affordable is whatever you can pay for, I guess. But Simpson County residents can't pay for a $450,000 house, the majority of them. Anyway,
But I agree with you, Gary, and that's part of the conversation that I wanted to bring up today. You talk about the map in Warren County. That's exactly, I mean, I could sit here and name several places all around Franklin that I think absolutely makes sense to put residential development that's wide open areas. And those are the areas that maybe we need to color in on a map and say, these are some top priority areas that make sense to do residential development.
I've heard the number 5,300 people come to Simpson County to work every day. They go home to another county. I promise you, you can build a doghouse in Franklin today and either rent it or sell it. 5,300 of them people, I would venture to guess half of them would live right here if they had a home.
Yeah. I don't know what the number is, but percentage-wise in the industry, roughly 61% of the people that work in our industry commute in and out. I don't know what that is
know.
number-wise.
But we keep getting more industry. Go out to all our industrial parks, we're bringing more people, more people. Are those people serving our tax, are we getting their tax money from them sleeping here every day, building houses, or? No, we send them back home, and most of them don't have to pay their full taxes. The businesses is getting a cut rate tax rate. So I feel like we either need to stop recruiting people or start building a little more. And that's just my opinion. I didn't mean to hijack your meeting.
I think it's a good discussion, and I guess, and the question would be, what can the local government do to help? That's the question.
I don't know the answer to that. I just know that somebody's going to have to get to leadership position and say, this is what we have to do. We need to finish this bypass if we got to take every citizen in Simpson County and get a petition and get it done. All our growth is staying right here in the middle of town.
And this is a serious question, and this came up in the strategic planning with the brand, so a serious question about our planning and zoning regulations that we do. How important is the completion of a 1008 bypass? Or is it even a bypass around Franklin at this point?
It's not a bypass, in my opinion. It needs to go even further out now than it does now.
It needs to go out further, and it needs to loop around.
Probably needs to go through Marty's property, plumb out of Hillsdale.
I'm sure he would sell you that property to do that.
I might be okay with that, but,
Anyway, that's
but
all
there
I gotta
has been,
say.
I have talked to some
we're-
people in the county who think.
We're trying, but we're not trying. It's just what I'm
All I was
saying.
gonna say about the bypass, there are some people in this county, and I'm not saying that I'm that person, but there are people that say that there needs to be an interchange at Hillsdale, and the road goes straight to the North Industrial Park, loop around and come out at exit
I would agree
2, and
with
that's a
that, but I
complete
don't know how you
bypass
pay
around
for it,
Franklin. But that's probably $100 million project. So, you know, I mean, there's lots of things, but when you mentioned the ambulance service a while ago, the ambulance service is doing things as the growth continues.
The best I can
and-
tell, our sewer water capabilities are well beyond what we use.
Right.
We
And
do
I
have
can-
a problem down here on Main Street, and I'm sure it's getting worked on. For all the city people, I think they do a good job. Now, sometimes we're not as efficient as we need to be, in my opinion, but we're working on that problem too, I think.
And I think all the, you know, from what I've talked to, when people ask what they want, full-time fire department is one of the top things on the list for the county and the city, and that's something we are all working towards.
Once we get a population that's needed, I think it'll be done.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I think we do need a full-time fire department. But then again, I say we don't, because I worked out across the street there for 3 years now, and I see the runs. I mean, in one run, one life saved is
Exactly.
worth all of it. But we don't have that many emergencies in Simpson County that you have to have somebody living there 24/7. That's just my opinion, and I probably just gonna get bashed here pretty soon. Anyway, whatever.
Thank you
Well,
for
I
your
appreciate
service.
you, I appreciate you coming up.
Thank you, Gary. Gary, I just want to say thank you for your service on planning and zoning. I agree with you. We're growing. We're not wanting to stop growth in the city. We're just trying to make sure that we have the right growth, slow and progressive, and take care of the problems that we have. We've contracted with a consultant to come up with a comprehensive plan for future growth, doing it the right way. We've come up with new subdivision regulations that had not been upgraded and changed in many, many years. We are beginning to do the same thing with business development, so that possibly we'll have some of those zones that you're talking about where we want the business to develop in these areas and not here. Or certainly some of the things that Mason's talking about of not having, residential around this business. And we're also going to upgrade or actually create rental regulations. Because, we've heard, and I'm sure you all have heard, situations where you've got housing that is not, may be affordable, but is not the proper housing for people to live in. And we want to make sure that we do not have any slumlords in Franklin. And these new developments that are being built, we want to make sure they're built properly and maintained properly so they will not, fall down and degrade and look bad in the community. So those are the things the city's working on. We're not trying to stop growth. We're trying to improve the growth.
And just for the record, most of the residential growth is inside the city limits of Franklin, so there's very little that we're going to say and do on the county level of government that's going to change it. I didn't take that. Hey, Gary, how long have we known each other? Yeah, man, you are all good. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? I mean, okay.
I'm Brent Rushing. I'm a local builder. My wife and I build here and in Bowling Green. I think Gary made a real good point toward the end of what he was talking about, and that's this. I think it's a real problem if we entice industry to come here by giving them incentives, like push off when they're going to start paying taxes on one hand, and on the other hand, even start discussing impact fees. I think that's unfairly making people who would want to live here because they work here have to pay more for a house. I think the danger you have is if you invite a bunch of industry here, give them incentives, and then the people do what Gary just said. They get in the car and they drive to Bowling Green, to Russellville, Scottsville, wherever to live. What did we gain? The occupational tax? When those people go home on Friday, they're not going to drive back down here to eat dinner at restaurants, put gas in their cars, buy groceries, do anything else. So to me, it doesn't make any sense. If you're going to do impact fees, if you're saying we want to raise what the cost it is to live here, then that's fine. But let's take away the incentives for industry to come here. If you want to come here because of the location, because of the workforce, because of the quality of life, but don't just come here because you're looking for the best deal out there. So that's my thought on that. You look on Realtor.com right now, and I looked just a minute ago on my phone, there's 19 houses for sale countywide. All price ranges, whether it's brand new, about to fall down, $50,000, $500,000. It gives you an idea of what's out there. 19 houses countywide. So there's no inventory at all. So if anybody wants to come here for a job, good luck having something. We haven't had a completed house, my wife and I, here for sale in 2 years, at least. We used to stage houses once upon a time. We used to have a house done. It might sit for a couple months before you sell it. I hadn't done that in at least 2 years. Right now, don't have anything even under construction, not on contract. Not even with a footer in the ground. Right now, simply waiting on lots to build on. So crazy demand, prices have absolutely gone up crazy. But when you compare it to pricing as close, and I caution people to say, all these people from Nashville coming up here, not even Nashville, Gallatin, Hendersonville, White House, Portland. And if you don't believe me, go to Zillow, go to Realtor.com, look at what's available in Franklin, then just change the city. Look at White House, look at Portland, look at Gallatin, look at Hendersonville. I think you'll probably be surprised what a $250,000 house here might be $320 in Portland or White House. You're not going to stop that. Those people are going to come here. The only thing that can change it, everybody probably knows this, is if that gap closes. If our $250,000 house here costs $320, why move here? There's no, what's the incentive to move here?
Don't you think that people want amenities as well?
I agree with that. Absolutely.
We need commercial development.
I think it's three-legged stool. I think you need industry, I think you need housing, and I think you need commercial stuff. I think you need all three. But I don't think you should make one of the legs on the stool carry the load.
But I would
If the
agree.
housing's got to carry it, I think industry ought to
Would
should
have
carry
been
it.
agree about
I
the industry,
absolutely-
because sometimes we give them the farm to come here.
What's that?
I agree with you on the industry.
I agree.
We give them the farm to come here.
Sometimes, yeah.
And it takes us years and years and years to recoup that tax revenue.
I think on that end, in my opinion, I think we could be pickier about the industry.
I agree.
And Brent,
There's a job that pays 50, 60, 70,000 a year, and there's a job that pays $16 an hour, and there's a big difference. What do you mean the difference? I'm not knocking anybody that has a job making that kind of money. What I'm saying is there's a difference in what disposable income those people have to spend.
Well, we may have got to that point, and we
Could
could be.
be. I think we can afford to be a little choosy here, given our geography, given our amount of land, given everything we just talked about versus Middle Tennessee. And remember this, we're getting squeezed both directions. We're not only getting squeezed here, south. Where's all the growth in Warren County residentially? South Warren County, it's all coming this way.
51% of our workforce don't live in Simpson County, but it's not all due to housing.
Agreed.
I mean, I don't know what the percentage is, but, you know, a lot of people they want more than what
True.
our community offers.
I agree with that. But I would also say this, I'd caution people about apartments. I've got two daughters, one of them's grown, teaching her fourth year at Richmond. Another one's getting ready to graduate from UK. When my one girl wanted to come back here, even if you want to come back here, the problem if you don't have, in my opinion, if you don't have apartments, a lot of times you never get those people. And here's what happens. There's no apartment to go live here. They're not old enough. They don't have enough money to go buy a house. The house that's now $250,000, that was $180,000 2 years ago. They're starting out. They need to be able to have an apartment to live into. And you know what they find out? Man, it's a great place to live. We like the parks. We like the square. We like this. We like that. But if you lose them to a place like Bowling Green, you may never get them back. You may never get them back. Another thing I'd say is this. I totally understand some people don't want apartments. Some people don't want a house on a quarter acre. Some people don't want, this or that. Here's what I'd say. I don't think any one group should have the right to tell the other groups you can't have this. I think if you want to live you want a house and have 500 acres, man, more power to you. I think it's great. I think if you want a house on Cedar Street that's 100 years old with big old trees on it, man, I think that's awesome. But I think if you want a new construction house on a quarter acre and you got a 2-car garage and you got a patio up back, I think you ought to be able to have that too. And I don't think any of those groups, and if you want to live in an apartment, I think you ought to be able to have that. I think everybody ought to be able to have that. No one group should tell the other groups, you can't have it because I don't want that.
And Brent, I completely agree with you. I completely agree with your assessment on residential, commercial, industrial, what we're doing and how we look at that. And that's the balance that when I opened up by saying, the ones of us here, that's the balance, because believe me, I hear what you're saying. I hear what Gary's saying, and I know what y'all are saying. Listen, I'm there. I've been there. I'm right where you guys are at. I mean, me personally, I know. The problem is we are hearing a lot of stuff from other groups, and you're right. One group can't dictate what happens in the entirety of the community. What we've got to try to do is hear some from every group, and now let's figure out what makes the best sense for this community overall. And hey, I'm not complaining about it, but it's a heck of a tough job.
Yeah. Another thing that I think is funny that I hear a lot of times from people is they'll talk about, and y'all know the codes better than me, but used to be subdivision, lot widths were 100 foot, and then what is the new one, 75 foot, I guess?
75 in an R1.
And 75 foot lots. I'll tell y'all this. Bowling Green, they do them all day long. I build on them all day long. 50 foot wide lots. Oh my gosh, I can't imagine having a neighbor 5 foot from my lot line, and he's 5. Our garages are 10 feet apart. Well, here's the thing. Here's what I never understand. If you're for conserving land, and you're for saving the farmland and stuff, which I think is great. If you got a plot of land that you could put at 50 foot wide lots and put 150 houses on it, or if you got a subdivision, if you do 75 foot wide lots, you could put 100 houses on it. Why in the hell would you not want them packed in closer? It's less land they're taking up. To me, it's complete illogical to think, well.
It's what everybody wants.
Huh?
Or it's what you want.
Right, but that gets back to what I just said a minute ago, because somebody thinks if you got a lot in town, you need to have a brick home, 2,000 square feet, 3/4 acre lot. Like, you should be able to have that. Somebody should be able to develop a subdivision like that, but somebody should also be able to develop a subdivision that is 50-foot wide lots, vinyl siding.
With 1,100 square foot houses.
And here's what I also encourage people to do in here, if you don't know it. Look, like I said, look up sometime on Realtor.com or Zillow, and look at how many houses are available. Anybody have any idea, how many people in here have any idea what lot prices are for subdivisions in town now?
I have an idea.
I do too.
I bet it'd be an eye-opener for a lot of people. Be an eye-opener. You know what the subdivision across from the country club? Do you know what that new section is? Do you know what lot costs are in there? Take a guess.
I'm gonna guess 45,000.
You're right, it's $45,000. It's $45,000. And you know what? If you say, well, I'm gonna go out there today and buy a lot, guess what? They're all sold out. You're not gonna-
I've got an unfair advantage on the rest of the
Right.
people guessing no.
But I think it'd be an eye-opener, so I think it'd be an eye-opener on what there is available in inventory. I think it'd be an eye-opener on what lots cost. I think it'd be a big eye-opener for some people in this room probably of what a house costs. What does a 1,500 square foot vinyl siding house in a new development in Franklin in town cost? It's about $260,000.
I seen one advertised.
And by the way, there aren't any for sale.
I seen one advertised yesterday for $289.
If you want a 1,250 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car vinyl house, which by the way, you're not gonna find one. If there was, maybe 240, maybe. I mean, you're not gonna get anything. You're not gonna build anything probably less than that.
No.
That's bottom. These 2,000 square foot brick in a nicer subdivision in Franklin on a 3/4 acre lot, man, it's got a 4 in front of it,
Yeah. If not a 5.
if not a 5.
I'm
That's just what that costs today. I mean, it just,
There's quite a few builders here today, but I'm amazed that people would pay this kind of price for a house.
but again, and what the problem you have is, you've got a lot of people in Middle Tennessee
Hendersonville.
getting priced, either can afford Middle Tennessee or not willing to pay it, or they're fed up with taking an hour to take their kid to school. And what I think that's gonna lead to is, unfortunately, are you gonna have some people priced out of Franklin? Absolutely.
What those people
Absolutely.
are doing, they're selling their houses up there, Brent, and
Yeah.
I know, I talked to
Yeah.
some. They're selling their houses, coming here, buying houses,
Yep.
and putting about 20% of what they sold, or 25% in their pocket, and still have a home here.
You know what
That's comparable.
one of the biggest things we're concerned with, my wife and I, when we go to have a new construction house on contract? Will it appraise?
Yeah.
Because I could get more than what I'm selling it for. The only question mark is, will it appraise? Because if it doesn't appraise unless they're paying cash, none of it matters. But
And the question is too, not necessarily all the people coming up from Middle Tennessee, and I know this doesn't happen as frequently as the Middle
it's out of
Tennessee,
state.
as the Middle Tennessee people, and Jack can probably speak to this more than I could, but I know from personally talking
Absolutely.
to 2 different people over the last 4 weeks, people moved here from Arizona,
Yep.
sight unseen, into a house.
We've sold houses to people from, in the last 2 years, California, New Mexico, Texas, Illinois, believe it or not, Hawaii, I don't understand how. Tennis, tons. If we get a phone call from somebody looking for a house, there's probably a 80% chance it's not a Franklin person.
Yeah. Well, just, believe me when I say that, I'm looking at all of these guys back here, and you, believe me when I say this, I'm not after the residential building. What we are tasked with the job of trying to make sense and manage growth for
Right.
not just the here and now, but the future, and how do we do it?
Right.
And I think these are good and healthy conversations, and like I assured Gary a while ago, as long as I'm a part of it, we won't make regulation changes or anything without good, open debate before it ever happens. I mean, we're not, if I'm involved in it, we're not just going to do something and slip it out there and say, okay, here you go, guys, just take it and deal with it.
And I want to be clear, I'm not for, as a lot of y'all, I agree with you, I'm not for just any growth, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I'd like to see somewhat smart growth, whether it be the industries that we're trying to attract. Are they good industries with good paying jobs, with good benefits, or are they just looking for the best deal to come here? Are we looking for a mixture of developments? It's some less expensive stuff, there's some apartments, there's some higher end stuff. And it'd be nice to have the commercial too, I'd like to have all that, but don't let one group dictate what everybody can have. Don't let Let's not keep attracting industry if we're not going to, and give them deals to come here if we're not going to, be willing to work with the people that are developing and building houses to have houses, to keep those people here and spending their money here. At least, not all of them. Some of them still won't stay. I get that. But let's try to keep some of those people here spending their money here, not just coming here to work and going right back to wherever.
And here's the thing, and I mean, I'll say this right here on camera. I mean, I'm good and I'm fine, and I'll pat the people on the back that's coming here from Bowling Green and other places to build. But you guys sitting out here that live here, work here, and stay here are the ones that I'm really proud of what y'all do and how you do it.
Anyway, I've talked too long. That's all I had to say.
Thank you, Brent.
Thank you, Brent. Anybody else before we wrap this meeting up?
Did we have more topics?
No more topics, Josh. We're done. You good? You're welcome to speak, bro. You're welcome to speak.
I think Brent Gary covered everything.
Yeah. Just listen. We're listening to everybody, and we're going to try our best to do what's going to be the best for all of us. So. All right. Okay. If there's no other discussion, I guess we do have executive session still to deal with. It'll be according to KRS 61.810. Paragraph 1L, personnel, discussions or hearings which might lead to the appointment, discipline, or dismissal of an individual employee or member, and land acquisition, which is KRS 61.810, paragraph 1B, deliberations on the future acquisition or sale of real property by a public agency where publicity would be likely to affect the value of a specific piece of property to be acquired for public use or sold by public agency. I just need a motion and a second from Marty and Nate. On motion and second, all in favor from the court, aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right.
Second. I'll move. Okay, a motion by Commissioner Bennett, second by Commissioner Powell. All in favor, aye. Aye. Okay, we're in executive session.